Strong Like a Bull isn't just a clever name for a piece of artwork, right?
No. Yeah, you did your research as well. Strong Like a Bull is actually what's sitting on the table over here.
Okay.
It was the first piece that I donated to Gunnison Tough, which was a cancer organization. They helped me a lot in my cancer journey, and it was really the jumping point for this art going full time. You know, when I was going through my cancer, I got to a point where I was crawling to go to the bathroom. You hit me good there.
Sorry.
No, you're good. And that's kind of, I had this like, it's like a Russian lady, you know, like Rocky Bullwinkle lady, you know, like, get up, you strong like bull, you know. And I just kind of kept hearing that in my head, and maybe it was my grandma or, you know, somebody, you know, that was looking over me. But, you know, I put that emotion into an art piece, and that was like the revelation of like, all right, cool, I can make the coolest art on the planet. But if it doesn't like touch the viewer or do something like that, it really isn't. I don't want to say it's not art, but it can go a lot further. And yeah, we auctioned it off and brought great money, and the people handed it back to me.
Wow,
that's why it's here.
That's amazing.
Pretty crazy.
Let's rewind a little bit. I know that your story's kind of out there, but for new viewers and stuff like that, it's April 2020. The world's already on fire, right?
Yeah.
And then you get a diagnosis.
Yeah. Okay. We were like full in it here too. I was full-time firefighter at that time. Being in a ski resort area, we were hit with COVID back in like November of 2019.
Right.
So we had already been running through that gauntlet a lot. I was in the middle of building the house that we're here at now, and I'd been told a year prior that I had a hemorrhoid. And I asked the docs if I could finish my house and go on. And yeah, after I finished, I got my colonoscopy at 39 years old and was told I had stage 4 cancer.
And I read somewhere you had said like it had been in your body for a long time.
They said at least 10 years,
wow.
You know, which, you know, you think back, I probably longer, you know, I had some injuries as a kid that they thought maybe that was part of what started it, younger and scar tissue and so on. But, yeah, you know, it was a real eye opener at, you know, at that young of an age to think that something like that had been growing in me that long. And I'm not most healthy guy, but I'm a really active person, and would have never known. You know? Right.
So you get through that, and that gives you the push to just tackle art, or how did you get from being a firefighter and I'm going all in on this?
Do you want the PC version, or you want
No, I want the real version.
So I went back to work, firefighter, and I went back to work for a year. And being the climate we're in, we had vaccine mandates, and my chemo had taken over 80 pounds off me in 40 days. And even though I was back to work and getting strong again, I was still really weak. You know, I was much lighter than I am now, and I just wasn't going to put it in my body. And this was going to be, I always did stuff like this for like gifts and just to kind of clear my mind. And even after beating my cancer, you know, my 5-year life expectancy was like 8% or something, you know?
Wow.
So thinking that this was going to be a retirement gig, it didn't make any sense to like, hell, am I even going to get an opportunity to see what I can make?
Right.
And I started with like the most basic stuff, and like, I'll call it like craft fair type stuff. And until the Strong Like Bull came to my mind, and I approached that organization and said, hey, I want to do this, I didn't really realize where this was going to go.
Right.
You know,
and now you've raised nearly or over $100,000.
Right at $100,000.
Yeah.
And I'm about to start the project for this year again. I'll do it again in July, and we'll see. You know, I would have never been able to financially give back that type of money. I'm an artist, you know, I do okay, but it opened my eyes to what I was, you know, purpose, right? Going through all that, and then like losing my career, losing my insurance as a cancer survivor, is like all that stuff is like crazy heavy to deal with. And not knowing how long I was going to be here, it became more of like, what do I want to leave on this planet. And it wasn't just like cool art. I wanted to leave art with like meaning and stories behind it and depth.
Right.
And that's kind of the path I've been following now for the most part.
And you hear people say this as a cliche, but I'm sure it means a lot more to you and like with your journey, is that tomorrow isn't guaranteed.
Oh, yeah, no. I mean, for sure. I thought even at a certain point in my cancer, I told my wife, don't let me go to sleep. Like, I didn't think I would wake up. And I still today would probably say if I would have gone to sleep and or if I would have kept on my chemo, I don't think I'd be here today talking to you, you know? So it's definitely the perspective of, you know, make it happen now. You know, nobody's going to do it for you. You know, there's a Donovan Frankenreiter is a songwriter, and one of my favorite lyrics is, people say things happen for a reason, but if you don't do them, they won't.
Oh,
you know, and I think that's a really, really cool, easy way to kind of explain it, you know, and you can use that through your whole life.
It took a lot of grit to get through that. And now as an artist, it still takes a lot of grit, right? To go out and do the art and still try to make a living. How do you manage that?
Not great. No, I'm doing all right. You know, I put myself out there, the auctions that I do for a couple different organizations, even though I'm giving back, there's obviously good clientele there. I do speak at those situations, so it lets people see like me and my meaning and purpose.
Right.
And you know, once you get people that can relate to you, you know, they hopefully become some sort of a client, or they at least support you in some way, and getting your name out there and spreading your name. I'm not like a weekend show guy. I don't feel like I represent myself very well at those. You know, it's a lot of small talk. It's a lot of conversations that don't go anywhere. And I just want to, I'd rather find those clients that are a little fewer and far between and have something that's more personal. And you know, on the financial side is a huge roller coaster. Like it's like no other, you know. So you just gotta, like you said, you gotta, you know, put your head down. You know, nobody forces me to come out here every day to work, and I probably work 20 more hours a week than I would, or more than a regular paid job, and make less money per hour. But I just love the hell out of it. You know.
And you're making pieces. I've seen where you've kind of said you want them to be like almost legacy pieces or heirloom pieces that last, right?
Yeah. I just did a piece for like a 10th year anniversary for a family, and hid all these little Easter eggs or little surprises in there. And I told them in the beginning, like, your kids will fight about this, not because of a value thing, but because it reminds them of mom and dad so much. And it tied the whole family's story together, which is really cool. So I'm starting to like, my clients are becoming friends. Some of these conversations are conversations that you don't even necessarily have with friends, talking about history of like your wife and where'd you propose and where'd you live and all these things that are really cool to get to know somebody. And, you know, and I'm trying to tie that into the art, which has been a really fun challenge, and to do it right and not gaudy. Right.
Yeah. Family is like a huge center point of what you do. And maybe that could be your story of what you went through and your wife standing beside you. I did go back. She's got a podcast I went back and listened to, and she had an episode called How to Help a Hero. And in that, she talks about caregivers and people that are walking through really tough times. And obviously she did with you.
Yeah.
If you could take your mind now and go back in 2020 before it all happened, is there something you could give Bree to encourage her on what you guys were about to walk through?
That's a tough question. I mean, I think in the end, the caregivers carry this or those type of situations more than the people going through it, you know? At that time, it kind of became my job of like, my job was just to beat cancer.
Right.
Her job was to help me beat cancer, feed me, take care of, you know, we had my son was like 5 at the time, which I thank God, because he doesn't remember it as much as he could have. I definitely can't thank her enough for all that. I mean, it's been a crazy roller coaster for us as a family because it's brought us a lot closer together. But it's also kind of gave a little bit of a separation, or it's still always kind of there.
Yeah.
Back to your question, as far as what I would give her, probably just like a huge ass hug. Thanks for supporting me in all aspects of life. And we might not have the best marriage and we might not do everything right, but we sure as hell support each other really well. And, just tell her to hang on, because it's going to be a roller coaster.
Yeah.
And it still is,
for sure.
When you're a cancer survivor and as definitely as heavy of a cancer as I have, it's your life.
Yeah.
So she is on me still more than about my diet and and all that. And, she's really probably the stronger person in this situation. And I probably had the easier avenue of it, to be honest.
Yeah. She had kind of said that sometimes the fallout is almost as terrifying as the actual diagnosis.
Yeah.
Just the aftermath of the constant, like, thinking back to it. Will it,
Yeah. And she carries, like I said, she definitely carries it more and has a harder time to move on from it. And I think part of it is, I have an outlet, right? And I can put that emotion into my art, where, she had a career and she still has the same career. And she has her outlets and exercise and this and that, but it's different for the mind and healing when you can do it mentally and physically.
Yeah.
So I think that's a challenge for any caregiver. And seeing, if I go have too many cocktails one night or something, she doesn't get mad about me going out and having a good time with my friends. She's more of like, look, you need to be taking better care of yourself and so on. But I'm like, I'm going to live my life and enjoy it, on a happy medium.
That preservation, not only of like your health and stuff like that, but also you're doing pieces of art that could substantially last forever.
Yeah.
Does that show up? Is that intention? Is that why you chose this medium, or?
No, I mean, it definitely is part of that. Like, what do I want to leave? And I do say that often, of like, these things will hopefully be here hundreds of years beyond what I, myself or yourself or my kids. The metal kind of just, I grew up around mechanics shop, body shop. I've always worked with my hands. And it's something I've always been drawn into because it's really a forgiving material. So I like that. It's quick, versus like wood. You got to wait 24 hours if you make a wrong cut for glue. This stuff, you can just break it apart and, cut it and so on, Even this, I've probably cut it apart 7,500 times and just redo it. And, I do like that part of it. And I like that it is going to be around, and especially the meaningful pieces, that'll be a legacy different than I would have left as a firefighter for my community or something like that.
Do you have one that you've done for yourself that you're just like, I made this for me?
Well, I mean, I have ones that I do that I want out of my own head. I can't say I have anything. Well, I do. One of the first pieces I did was like, I inherited some hand saws from my grandfather, and I cut them into trees with a plasma cutter, because they weren't worthy of being a tool anymore.
Right.
And instead of tossing it or it's sitting here on the shelf, I made, some trees out of it and it hangs on the wall as a remembrance to him and the beginning of my journey in this, which is, really cool, even though it was so basic,
Right.
But that's kind of where it started is, body shop and kid. I was always like that artsy kid. I went to school for art when I was in college, but I never did anything with it, until now.
So where does the like inspiration or idea for a piece of work come from? Do you see a piece of metal and go like, oh, that looks like this, or is it just something in your head that then you got to kind of build?
I think a lot of it, the creative brain is hard to like turn off. Anybody that works with their hands gets it, and you got to just be open to if the material speaks to you and says it's, I did a hawk out of like 1,000 masonry nails.
Wow.
And I was at a yard sale and I dumped the bucket out and like spread them out. And, the bucket said $5 and the lady saw how excited I was. And she was like, I marked that wrong, $10. I said, I'll take it, So there are times where the material tells you what it wants to be.
Yeah.
Or I've got like notebooks upon notebooks and, renderings now that I'm trying to get a little more professional of projects that I want to do to put them into the universe versus keep them in my mind. And then I do commissions,
Sure.
like this in front of us is a commission and it's 100% somebody else's idea and what they want, which is probably why it's taken me longer, to be honest. It's not my vision. I've struggled with it because it's different than my style, but it's a challenge. So I want to do it.
Right.
And I think that's how I've been able to grow the way I've been, by taking the chance on a vision or an idea. Some of those go in the scrap pile. Some of them sit on the floor over here, and they might not work for the idea or that moment, but they're still a stepping stone, or I can maybe use them on something else, so. And eventually it just kind of goes to what they become. I might start with a total vision and I end with what it tells me it needed to be.
Right.
Or I see a meaning that I can add into it because I'm thinking, or something comes out of me while I'm building it. And it's like, oh, there's the gold of this piece. It's not the project, or once again, like the highest quality thing. It's like, now I can get somebody else to feel this piece.
Yeah.
And then that's when I usually decide to move forward on something,
What piece was like the most fulfilling? Either it was just a blast to make, or it was in your mind and it came out exactly like you wanted it.
Probably the most fulfilling is kind of where we started, the Strong Like Bull. That was the first time I actually like stood on a stage and like told my story about how that organization helped me. And I saw how I can touch an audience, and it also just gave me that like, oh, you can do it. Like, oh crap. Like, I cried in that piece, and I, in the end I was like, holy shit. Like, you freaking did that. And this came out of you and you didn't even have a clue what you're doing.
Right. Okay. Nice.
But then it was that stepping stone, and it gave me a little confidence in what I was capable of doing, and just beyond, going farther and farther. Land of the Free, I would say, would probably be like the second, just but the same shaping and meaning and just like overall vision of it. But I kind of try to make them all that way. I've learned the payday isn't the good part. The finish and the fulfillment of like when you're finished is the good part. I've got a golden fist on the wall over here, and it's a cast of my fist. And it's because I don't have people here at 2 a.m. when I finish. I used to give myself like a high five.
There you go.
And that was something I made in college. So I was like, well, I'm going to paint it, put it on the wall. And when I finish the project, it's like the fist bump.
Yeah.
And that's cool. Like the dang, dude, like, be proud of yourself.
For sure. So like when you are starting a new piece, obviously there was a lot of emotion and inspiration behind that very first one. Do you still feel like you kind of chase that a little bit, or does it show up in a different way with each piece?
If I'm making them for myself, I'm trying to chase a little bit of that emotion for sure. I don't want to like overdo it. I don't want to be like that guy that's like, always trying to put something that's not there. Right. Because I can say I can see it, but are you going to be able to feel it or see it? Right.
Right.
But, if I'm going to do a commission, I really try to get those sort of commissions. I'll take stuff like this that's not that deep, and there's a meaning behind it. They're Texas Longhorn folks, so to them there is. But for me, this one particularly is just it's a project,
right?
And I'm not knocking it. It's been a fun project. It's a payday, but I always can tell when I'm doing something for like the auction, right? I'll put in 150 hours in a week or 2 weeks because I can't let it go. But I've also had to try to back to the family part, it's became kind of an issue in the family because they see how much I get involved in my art.
Yeah.
And they feel like they're getting put behind a little bit. And that's like a really difficult balance because, you know, I'm trying to get it out of my mind and put the most, you know, meaningful art and best art I can out there. And I think I'm doing it for my family, but in the background, the family's seeing it a different perspective.
Yeah.
And that's been a challenge on those projects. So I've actually started taking on some stuff like this that I wouldn't before, to try to balance it a little bit. Okay. Budget, family time, emotional investment. Because I just, when you get into those moments or those zones of that, you see it in the finish, you've got the story behind it or the emotion that you're wanting to portray in it. It's hard to be present in other avenues of life. And I think other artists would tell you the same, you know, sometimes, you know, on those projects, I put the family to bed at 8:30 or whatever they go to bed. We got a 6-month-old, and I come back out here till like 3 a.m.
Right.
And I don't skip a beat about it because it's just part of me that's coming out. It's like an addiction of like, you got to get it out.
Yeah.
And then when I do that final fist bump, I could almost sleep for like a day. You know, like, and it's not I'm sure it is the compounding factor of so much time, but it's the emotional weight is gone.
Right.
You know, you've released it. You've put it into that project. And I'm not saying you like heal trauma necessarily out of one piece, but each piece takes a little bit of that with you.
Okay.
And even like I said, you know, my cancer could come back any day. And maybe it'll be worse. Maybe it won't. Maybe it'll never come back. But I want that opportunity to get all that out, you know, into the universe while I have while I'm here.
Yeah. Is that something that lives in the back of your mind?
It for sure does. I try not to. But I, you know, being open with it and doing like I've done with talks and stuff, you know, I get calls more often than I would like. And I don't say that because I don't want people to call me and ask me calls for people that got diagnosed.
Oh, okay.
And they want to know what my path was and what I did. And I'm always open for those calls. I don't care if anybody's watching this and they get a diagnosis, reach out. But those are the reminders, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot, you know, there's always commercials on the radio. There's commercials on TV. So it's hard to just like let it go because it does just become this thing that you're like, dang, another damn cancer prescription medicine or another TV show with somebody getting diagnosis or a kid or, you know, it becomes really hard, but it is part of you. Yeah. So I've accepted it. I'm not going to lie. I have pictures of my tumors in my cabinets over here. When I get like a pity party day, I just take a quick glance and like, this is where you were, look where you are now. And that's probably kind of weird.
I mean, what does that do for you? Does that recalibrate your, you know what, life is something to be treasured, I need to live in the moment, or where does it take your mind when you look at those things? Yeah, no, I mean, it's that perspective, right? Even when you're in cancer diagnosis or going through treatment, the world just keeps moving. Yeah. Nothing ever stops. And it's easy to get back into that like hustle and bustle and you get frustrated with small things or finances or this or that. And like I said, you know, in my mind, it's more of like a pity party because I'm truly blessed and fortunate to be here and even to be able to have this opportunity and have the support of Bree to have this opportunity because, you know, it's financially straining for all of us and time. And for me, that just lets me get back to that like perspective that was in the moment and like really true in 2020, 2021. You know, I had to do like living wills and things like that. And I would suggest for anybody, even if you're in your 30s, get that stuff organized because that was probably the hardest thing ever when it was a reality of like, well, if I die and Bree dies or something, where does my kid go? Where, you know, those are really heavy conversations to have in your 30s when it's a reality. Right. I would imagine it's easier
when it isn't. And just that quick glance just kind of helps me get back to like, all right, keep that perspective. Don't get wadded up about social media or something that you see or something going on, because it really doesn't matter in the end. You know, as a firefighter, I never once had a patient that was dying asking for their wallet or see what was in their bank account. You know, they want to see their family or they want to make a phone call. You know, and that's a straight reality to show you what's meaningful in the end. You know?
Yeah. How does that urgency show up in your artwork now?
I think the progression, the knowing like not every day is guaranteed. I still think I'm just getting started. I don't think I've touched what I'm going to create, but I have to get there. I have to match here in my hands what I have here, right? Which is why I've progressed with tools and going to get education. You know, I take a lot of classes from other artists or industry partners and things, and try to really portray that, like, you know, even though I just got started late in life on this and it isn't the most fulfilling career financially, I'm still going to continue to move forward and grow and push myself. Even if it's a failure, it's still a win, because I still learned. I still have that perspective of, even if it goes in the scrap pile, now I know what I did wrong and what I shouldn't do. And you're adding to the toolbox. Right. And like, I've shown you a couple of photos of things that I'm pushing for, and they're much different and meaningful and more public scale than what I do now. But you got to take like you got to build an artist resume. You know, I've not built stuff like that, so I got to show that I can. And the same, I think that also helps others that see what I'm doing and as open as I am, take opportunity or reach out and say, hey, how'd you do this? You know, and paying it forward. There's no reason to hold anything I've learned in here secret. Anybody else can get the same tools, and it all still look different and, you know, personal of what we have, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. And that's another way that you're kind of extending the legacy out there too.
Yeah. Or the classes, you know, I'm doing the classes now, which has also been like crazy fulfilling. I'm doing them here. I've been to like 6 colleges in 6 different states now. And the same, most everybody shows up and they're like, I'm not very creative or this or that. And what I tell them is like, what you do today is exactly what you were supposed to do. And it wasn't supposed to be anything different. It might not be what you had in your mind, but it gives you the point of where you are, and you can decide from there how far you want to push to keep going, or decide if that's kind of what you know, the style and techniques you want to do.
Yeah.
Which has been really cool. You know, I'm doing a class this week.
Yeah.
At a local college too. So
that's great.
It's been fun. You know, I used to teach fire. I was a live fire instructor for like burning buildings and in like the training facilities and also auto extrication. So I kind of missed that side of it. And I just didn't really have the confidence to do that in this until I took a few classes. And in some of those classes, I'm teaching certain techniques that I've learned over time, and they're like, whoa, you know? And so it's like, well, you know, I learn for every student that I'm teaching. So it's been a really cool transition. And the same, there's not really any money in classes. It's about the community. It's about growing, you know, and showing that you can do something if you're willing to just give it a shot and be willing to take the licks on one way or the other, you know?
Well, you're not only teaching, but I've heard where you'll still go and attend, even if you feel like you know the material, because you're still trying to learn. I heard you say something like if somebody was holding their hammer a different way, like you'd want to ask why that was the case. So is that you're continuing that education and the excellence in your craft too? Yeah,
for sure. And it's like a networking thing too. Mm-hmm. You know, like I've become friends with like Christian Sosa in Vegas, and you know, I used to watch him on Discovery Channel, and he's like an open book, and he's been doing it for 30, 40 years, now 35 years, something. Mm-hmm. And you know, having that outlet to even be able to call of like, hey, you know, I'm struggling with this. I can't get it to sit flat. What would you do? Yeah. And you get that knowledge back. And I'm being able to do the same thing for other people. And once again, the college students, a fresh eye of people that have never, I had kids in the last one. There was a set of daughters, 10 and 12, and they'd welded with their father, but they'd never like really created. And to see them, what they came up with was really cool. The one girl came up, she made a little middle finger, which I thought was hilarious. But she said her grandma always gives people a middle finger, and she was making it for her grandma.
That's funny.
And I even asked her, I was like, is your dad gonna like be okay with this? I don't want to stop you, because I asked her what she was doing, and she's like, I'm like, are you making the middle finger? Yeah. I was like, well, wait, and once again, she connected with it with her grandma.
Right.
Yeah. And I thought, wow, this is exactly what it's about. Like, even though I didn't think it was really appropriate, it was the younger daughter too. But it was really cool. And the dad was there, the parents have to be present at least in those situations. But
for sure,
I saw her connect a meaning or a feeling into her sculpture, and that meant more to me than I think she ever, she's 10. She wasn't going to understand. And the same, I'm in a class full of adults and stuff, and I'm not going to stop and talk about it necessarily, but those are like the little moments that I get that are just amazing,
Yeah. Well, you get those with the classes, but you not only teach some classes here, you also hold men's meetings here as well.
Yeah, I haven't done any recently. We had like almost 60 here right at this table, and I've done them in other states too. Actually, when I went home and I was doing them back to Illinois, did them with some friends and had like 25 guys show up that I hadn't seen in 10, 15 years, and trying to do that. The meetings were, I was taking some counseling after my cancer to kind of just digest everything, and I wasn't getting what I wanted.
Yeah.
And I had some friends that were also going through some hard times, divorces, family loss, things like that. And I just decided, why not try to create something that I thought would be the best for all of us. And everything stayed right here. It was, it really became about community building. Obviously that's kind of a theme that I like to stick in. And, I'd lived with the fire crew for like a third of my life, and had the firefighter, and after I left and on those terms, a lot of people chose to not communicate because of personal feelings and so on with the climate that we're in, and we're in then as well. So I did it here, and it was really awesome. And we do them still, and I still talk to a lot of those guys. But that's kind of what I'm starting to create with this metal artist with a mission, a little bit of a support community. I want it to become like an open book sort of situation. Right now it's just a page on Instagram.
Okay. What's the official handle for people?
Metal artist with a mission.
Okay.
And right now I'm just like spotlighting one artist each week. And most of us have some sort of story, whether it's sobriety or just wanting to get rid of the stress of their daily work, things like that. And I'm really trying to build that community and show that what I used to start my meetings with, I'm going to step back a little bit, was with that I think the way we were raised, I was born in 1980. So the way I was raised and what it looked to be a man back then is very much different than what it looks to be a man in 2026.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing to kind of adjust to, right? Like in our conversations, we're pretty old school, trying to, live in today's society and keep those old school values is a little bit hard.
Yeah.
Putting that out there on a public platform for people to see and people to talk about why they chose their paths and the trauma or the pain they've dealt with will open other people's minds to potentially being either open or finding an outlet for themselves to create. And then on top of that, hopefully it can merge certain clientele with certain people that they connect with to get those clients, on our art factor.
Yeah.
And eventually I want that to be like an in-person event and beyond.
That'd be great.
So
it's tough being a guy sometimes. We tend to try to have the mentality of you just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you go out the lone wolf sort of a thing. But it's nice to have community behind you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to have the grit, right? Yeah. I don't think if I hadn't been raised the way I was raised and get your ass up and go to work if you're sick, situation, I probably wouldn't have made it through my cancer as weak as I was, just because of all the mental aptitude that it took to keep thinking positive and moving forward. But I also wasn't raised in an environment that was very loving from the male side. It was like the dominant side. My dad was never around, but like my grandfather and my uncles were always cracking the whip and working and the punishments and all that stuff. And,
very old school.
and like that doesn't work today. My son is a sensitive 10-year-old boy. He's definitely my wife. And I sometimes I gotta all right, I gotta remember he's a lot different. Times are different. Kids perceive things differently these days. And I don't know. I just think that can be a thing that, especially for people that knew me before my cancer, is showing them how, just being purposeful and having a mission behind what you're doing and having a purpose behind what you're doing can really go far. And you got to change your mindset and you got to change how you act and the way you live your life to be able to be successful in those.
Right. I think I'm probably going to mess this quote up, but I think it's Viktor Frankl that said, if a man has a why, he can figure out anyhow. If you have that purpose, like you're saying.
I've never heard that, but I like that.
That you can get through any circumstance. And his story is he was a doctor and then he was arrested and put into a concentration camp during Nazi Germany and stuff like that.
Oh, crazy.
And so his story was they just had to find the purpose and the meaning. And I think the book is called A Man's Search for Meaning, but it's about basically finding the purpose to continue on. And he would talk about how he could tell when a man was about to die because he would trade his soup tickets for cigarette tickets. And he knew that, okay, this man's given up. And then once you give up your purpose, then just because of how malnourished and stuff they were, they would just pass away very quickly. And so, like you said, having that grit and having that purpose is what got you through your cancer and what ultimately kind of rewrote your story.
Yeah. It's like, it's such a, it's yin and yang, right? Like, I still want to keep that old school mentality. I'm still trying to raise my son old. We just went and put up 400 flags at the cemetery yesterday and, he poked every hole and trying to keep that, the meaning and the purpose in society. But yeah, it's really hard to not rub a lot of people the wrong way or be seen as like a harsh, stern man. I'm the man,
Yeah.
I don't really give a crap about any of that. I'm just trying to put it out there and trying to put positive in the world because there's just so much negativity and people spiral around it and people like feed off of it. And, even like the socials, I've never had like a negative interaction. I've never had anybody like knocking my work or like, I'm not a great TIG welder. People could knock me all day long about my welds. I'm honest about it. I say, look, I'm not a full-time welder. I'm an artist.
Right.
But I'm willing to learn more.
Sure.
I'm willing to get better. And I think that's where the difference of what I was raised is. It was more of like, we know it. We've had 20 years of experience. There's no way you could learn more.
Yeah.
The learning never ends, the flip side, my grandpa, when he got old, he died at 96, but he said like, Codie, if you're not learning, you might as well be dead.
Yeah.
So as he got old and wasn't working every day, that perspective switched for him. And I think that's one thing I think the cancer probably is going to make me live longer, to be honest, because of that purpose and willing to learn and move forward and being able to change the perspective. And I would have been real pissed to get this perspective at 75.
Oh, yeah.
It sucks that I got cancer at 40 or 39 and I've got a lot of repercussions from my surgeries that I have to deal with the rest of my life. But damn, it would really suck to have that revelation and maybe have burnt bridges with friends or family or never done this.
Right.
So it kind of goes back to that like perspective of turning something that's not great into what you want it to be.
Right.
And you can either lay in bed and have a pity party and maybe you wake up the next day, or you can get up and go outside. That was part of one of my goals, even if I had to crawl. I was going to get outside and get some sun, and get up, and have a purpose.
Well, you have an incredible story that's inspirational, and it's also encouraging in a way to just go out and kind of chase the dream. You're teaching that to your children, and I think it's beneficial for us too. Incredible story, but what's the next chapter is the question.
Well, I want to get into the classes more. Mm-hmm. I'm actually trying right now. I'm doing some research on plasma tables. I want to get my son's 10, my oldest boy's 10. Mm-hmm. I want to get him in here and working. I've got a lot of projects that I can repeat that I just don't have the physical time. Mm-hmm. So I want him to get in here and start teaching him skills and teaching him pride in his work and so on. And then I'm just going to go, I want to go bigger.
Yeah.
I want to put pieces in public that are super meaningful to people. I've got a couple pieces that I want to make that are more like a temple or a sanctuary type moment that you can actually get in and just keep pushing. Like I said, I think I'm just getting started. And it's, each project shows me, it proves that to me, because there's so many things I've done in even just the last year that I would have never thought. And it's just that next step of like, okay, you can do that. Now you take the next step, and then still continue to give back and grow this metal artist with a mission.
That's amazing. If somebody wants one of these, how do they get in touch with you?
I'm on socials under Codie Aljets, or Sage Country Customs is my business.
Okay.
CodieAljetsArt.com. You reach out. They, there's a process where we do a planning phase and so on and so on. But, I'm pretty easy to find, pretty easy to get a hold of.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time and letting us come in your shop and set up and have a conversation with you.
Yeah. Thank you all for coming out. I really appreciate the opportunity and be able to share my story, and hopefully, somebody feels this. And, if anybody has any questions on art, or if you want to do a man meeting, I'll give you a layout and so on. I'm pretty open book. Just reach out and I'll respond.
Awesome. Thanks.
So.